just before the murders and leaving shortly after. Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides.
She wasn't shy about talking to people about traumatic experiences that she had with her ex and just how emotionally abusive he was to her. It affected her to this day.
And there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't breathe. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
The address that was given to us by the surgery group that he worked for turned out to be a fake address. It was an address that doesn't exist.
A search for a doctor now accused in connection with a high-profile double murder right here in Columbus. All of it months before police say he shot and killed his ex-wife and her new husband.
Well, as we put the pieces of context together, it's starting to all make sense. You would imagine 10 years would be sufficient time to get over someone and move on. Normally, all things being equal, that would be true. So what makes it harder to get over someone? Well, if the ecosystem of your relationships, I mean your other relationships with family and friends and coworkers, if that's not healthy, it's tougher to rebound from an important romantic relationship. And I think the key to this area is the fact, firstly, that Dr. Michael McKee was adopted. And secondly, and this is important, the fact that McKee rejected his adoptive parents. Listen to this from reporter and author Susan Hendricks.
Was highly intelligent, very smart. He played on the football team with them for 4 years. So I asked about his relationships, what he was like. Did he have a girlfriend through high school? And he was adopted, an only child. And this stood out to me. He said he never really accepted his adoptive parents as his own. He did point out they have been estranged since 2017.
And this is the third crucial dimension to the psychological trifecta. It's this fact that McKee became estranged from his parents in 2017. That same year, he married Monique. That's a crucial part of the timeline. I wouldn't be surprised if Monique saw this, witnessed this. I mean, just the unraveling relationship with his own family, arguably the two most important people in his life, and saw this as a big flapping red warning flag. And wasn't she right? Now, it's tempting to think McKee simply sat and stewed in a basement somewhere for a decade, stalking Monique's social media while grinding his teeth. It's a little more complicated than that. On the one hand, the divorce settlement was fairly straightforward. McKee kept the couple's $230,000 home in Roanoke, Virginia. It was in his name, as was the mortgage. And since they had no kids, there was no spousal support. The only aspect that I think stands out here is that she asked for and was granted the divorce, not him. And that, I think, was something that surprised and deeply wounded him. Now, on the other hand, recent events did trigger, I think, bad memories at a difficult time. Following their divorce, after there was no activity in terms of court activity for years, suddenly there was a flicker of latent legal activity in the middle and towards the end of 2025. As recently as June 2025, about 6 months before the murders, a court docket showed a hearing that was related to this divorce was scheduled. According to USA Today, a court spokeswoman said that the case had a trial date scheduled in September, but that it was cancelled. Now, had this been in isolation, it might not have been much of a big deal for the vascular surgeon. Not great, but not necessarily a huge bugbear either. The problem was McKee was sort of on the run, trying to outrun a malpractice suit. And so these court proceedings, in the context of this lawsuit, threatened to expose him. You know, at a, shall we say, a difficult, delicate, and dangerous time. And I think the malpractice suit near the end of the story and the adoption at the beginning of it basically shows a wounded man and a difficult man who's trying to dodge his own reality. And I think his divorce with Monique was a moment of authenticity in his life, one that he struggled then to come to terms with. That was a moment he could either, that could have set him on the right path. Instead, it didn't really seem to, if anything, and maybe it aggravated his gripe with the world, because on paper, none of this really makes sense. According to KOMO News, if you listed out the people who would likely be accused of committing a double homicide, a fully trained vascular surgeon would be at the bottom of my list. Those are the words of Dan Laird, the Las Vegas lawyer you heard at the beginning of this clip, and he was the guy who filed the malpractice suit. Now, where have we heard about a doctor being on the run before?
Your fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball.
In the movie The Fugitive, Dr. Richard Kimball is a respected surgeon on the run for murdering his wife. It's a allegations of medical malpractice and negligence in the months prior. Dan Laird claims McKee failed to train a physician's assistant who injured a patient at the Las Vegas Surgical Associates LLP in 2023. So this goes back 2-3 years. According to Fox News, separate court filings show that McKee was facing several allegations of medical malpractice and negligence in the months prior to being charged in the deaths of an Ohio dentist and his wife. This makes one wonder what was going on. Was he perhaps using drugs, or was he addicted to something? What was causing this problem for him to do his work properly? And so basically you can see his professional life was falling apart, probably as a symptom of his private life not coming together. According to KOMO News, ABC6 investigators uncovered nearly a dozen failed attempts to serve McKee with a lawsuit, which originated in Nevada. Attempts to serve McKee were thwarted by fake addresses and questionable state-issued phone numbers. Now, what you're actually seeing there is this doctor being a fugitive prior to him becoming a fugitive in terms of double murder. Can you see that? Interestingly, the address that was given to us by the surgery group that he worked for turned out to be a fake address, Laird said. It was an address that doesn't exist. Do you see how the covering up of a lesser crime leads to the commission of a far worse crime, double murder? In other words, an escalation. Meanwhile, Laird's process servicer documented, as I said, at least 9 attempts to locate McKee. That wasn't all. It wasn't only a non-existent address, but also his phone number that was issued with a state medical board simply led to a fax machine. Laird's efforts to contact McKee through former colleagues, including Dr. Peter Caravella, who is also listed in the malpractice suit, were unsuccessful. He said he has no idea where Dr. Michael McKee is now. Laird recounted from his response in October. He just disappeared. Laird went on to say they, meaning the doctors, surgeons, tend to be highly responsible people. Yes, they do. They're not the kind of people who just disappear suddenly, and this was very surprising to us. Despite tracking McKee's current medical license to Rockford, Illinois in November, repeated phone calls made by Laird went unanswered. Laird was unaware of the Columbus murders until ABC6 Investigates informed him this week. Meanwhile, McKee's Nevada medical license
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So he was getting sued by numerous, he had like 7 malpractice lawsuits against him or something. So, yeah. And then his real parents ain't his, or he was adopted or something like that. I don't know, but it still don't give him any reason to do what he did. I mean, Yeah, I know what a lot of people are saying that I've had family members and stuff do crazy shit. It's still what do you do? I mean, it's a horrible situation, but they put themselves in that predicament. And if you don't do something, they'll drag the whole family down with them. You know, I imagine that was his next thing.
Expired last summer. Now, you can see just from this context just how fraught, unhappy, and unsettled McKee's life was at the time, the polar opposite in so many ways to the happy family bubble that was Monique's life. I think there's a dog in that story, there are two children, just a very happy family situation going on. And it was possibly in the simmering disquiet leading up to and beyond Christmas that a truth resurfaced. Not really a truth, but a splinter in his mind, pretending to be a truth. This is all your fault. Often say not all liars are murderers, but all murderers are liars. This is because murder happens at the end of a long line of bad habits, of not being able to face reality, of not being honest about the world and ourselves, and of often living in delusions and fictions and fairy tales and magical thinking. Telling lies is often a symptom that you're simply not able to stand up to sort of the world and its scrutiny. You're simply not able to face either the realities of others or your own reality or both. Now, coming
Well, reality is they drove someone crazy and someone snapped. You know? I've been there, but you shouldn't be doing that because of love or whatever. I don't know. Pretty crazy. I don't know why he just didn't walk away, get his life together. He would have been making big buku money, and I'm sure he would have found love again. You know, I'm wondering what he did on the side. Where'd all the weapons come from, and when did he start getting into weapons?
back to the evidence and how it relates to this case, if all the cops had was surveillance, I'm not sure it would be enough to convict. But now it seems they have located the murder weapon. That's very important, very significant. Remember, in the Reiner case, no murder weapon. In the Koberger case, no murder weapon. And they've linked that murder weapon, or they think they have, to 9 millimeter casings found at the scene. I think there were three of them. Like so many weak minded people, McKee seemed to be trying to assuage his esteem issues.
I wonder what high school he played football in. We'll have to look that. What high school did he go to?
With guns, lots of guns. And you can imagine with this escalating criminal psychology, these feelings of resentment that are building up. It's approaching Christmas time, and you've got all of these guns. Well, isn't there then also the temptation to use them?
What did you think was going to happen?
According to USA Today, one of the multiple guns found in the Chicago condo of Dr. Michael David McKee has been preliminarily matched to the scene of Spencer and Monique Tepe's shooting deaths. That's according to Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant, what she said at a news conference on Wednesday, January 14th. That was yesterday. This was a targeted attack, Bryant said. Well, no shit. It makes you realize doctors and even surgeons are people as well, and some of them are very bad apples. Would you have wanted this doctor to perform surgery on you? And how many people would have known that this was this guy's dodgy backstory? Anyway, the surveillance footage is the key that cracked this case, and hopefully, in the next analysis, I'm going to shatter some perceptions surrounding this that I think will blow your mind. So look out for that. All right, so I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself how many crazy doctors and surgeons are out there that are in people's pockets or just crazy nut jobs. Probably millions. As you can see, we have some sun today. It is chilly out. I think we all woke up today with trespassers in us. And we'll never be the same again, Lord. Not because you change us, because these people use magic and witchery and sorcery in our country, and doctors and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, it's a horrible situation that our country is in today. I'm not seeing anything too much new on this. I think someone's hacking into my computer again or whatever. It's showing advertising sites, heavy duty truck repair, but it's got some woman on it spreading her legs wide open. Just keep killing the devil. Keep doing what you're doing until they heal us or put us back the way we were. You know? Keep doing what we're doing in America.
The Tepes were killed, feel a motive. Why a vascular surgeon from Illinois alleged gunned down his ex-wife and her current husband 2 states away, nearly a decade after they parted. Why? Chief Elaine Bryant did call the murders a, quote, targeted domestic violence attack. That's pretty telling. And she did. Police recovered weapons, plural, from Dr. Michael McKee's penthouse condo in Chicago, including the alleged murder weapon. And how police know that? Well, Banfield viewers, you were tipped off to that on Monday during my interview with former prosecutor Murphy. Here's what he said.
What's really interesting, Ashley, is there is a system known as NIBIN, and that's the National Ballistics database, where they take shell casings, assuming it's a semi-automatic handgun. We don't know that yet. But the shell casings that get expended on those, they're like DNA for firearms.
Now, fast forward to this morning in Columbus, Ohio. Here is that same chief I was talking about, Elaine Bryant.
And there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
Blinking, you missed it, but she said there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN, that database. NIBIN, it stands for National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. I know, it's a mouthful. NIBIN's easier. And as Matt Murphy said, it's basically a library, like a database that can trace bullets and shell casings back to the gun that fired them. For now, the make and model of the gun that killed the Tepes is still in the we're not saying column, but this might, however, answer the question as to why it was ATF agents who actually made the caller, the ones who arrested Dr. Michael McKee last Saturday near the Rockford, Illinois hospital where he worked. As it turns out, the NIBIN database is an ATF creation. That happened back in 1999. Something else that we learned today, a shadowy person of interest seen on surveillance video in the alley behind the Tepes home in the time of the murders. Well, according to the police, it's him. It's Dr. Michael McKee. They told us that today, although we all wondered, didn't we? There's so many interesting things I'm going to tell you about, like the way he's walking, the height, the gait, the stride, all of that. It's a dead giveaway if you know what to look for. But now I want to turn to something that struck me as very interesting in today's police press conference.
Well, she's right about that, his gait and everything, but it was hard to get his gait in court because I think he had his legs shackled and his arms shackled. So it was actually kind of hard to tell, but the upper body you could see kind of matches the shoulders that we're seeing in the video of him walking in the alley. Now, there was a lot of suspects because when this case first came out, there was a lot of people looking at the family, close family or whatever. There was a lot of people saying, well, that wasn't Monique that called. That was someone that was at a party or a sister, and she was having trouble with her husband or one of these guys. So maybe there was conflict within the whole family or something, But usually in a case, especially when there's keypads and security systems and there's no forced entry into the house, and of course they look at the family and friends and if she was married and everything. So they just got lucky on this one probably and solved it real fast.
One answer that was definitive and one answer that wasn't, but spoke volumes nonetheless. The definitive answer was that there have been no police reports made about Dr. McKee stalking or harassing Monique Tepe before the murders. That at least was said about that house. No reports from that house. But when reporters asked if there had been any communications between Dr. McKee and Monique Tepe, this was the answer the police chief gave.
Can you tell us if McKee and Mrs. Tepe had any contact leading up to this incident, months, weeks?
There are some things that we can't share for investigative purposes, but what I can tell you again is that we didn't have any reports or anything linked to that specific location as it relates to the ex-husband and Monique Tepe.
Okay. So no reports ever came from 1411 North 4th Street about Dr. McKee, but could they have come from any other locations about Dr. McKee? Don't know. And notice how the chief hedged on the question of communications. She said, there are some things we cannot share. She didn't say no reports of communications. So the silence to me speaks volume. Is it possible there were contacts between McKee and Monique, or maybe even between McKee and her husband, Spencer Tepe? I think we're going to find all of this out in the days, weeks, and months ahead. We may hear more details.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to find out were they still communicating, right? Was she hitting him up for money or whatever, or was she calling him, and or was the husband calling him and yada yada whatever? But it'll be interesting to see once all the data comes out.
Details earlier, too, at Dr. McKee's first court date in Ohio. This was just his quick appearance. First time before a judge. He's in Winnebago County. It's not where he's going to be tried. It's where they picked him up. It's where his hospital is in Rockford, Illinois. But he's going to be extradited, right? He's got a date scheduled in Ohio. Actually, it was scheduled for Monday of next week, but they've already now pushed it to Friday, the 23rd of January. Apparently, whoever is in charge of moving him can't do it quickly, even though he waived extradition. And even though he allegedly made that drive himself, just 6 hours it took him, give or take, between Christmas and New Year's. Joining me now with her expertise on all of this is former FBI special agent.
Well, they're saying 6 hours. It took him to drive there and back or whatever. I don't know. So why are they taking so long to come and pick him up? I have no idea.
Jennifer Coffendorfer. Okay, Jennifer, I thought of you right away after the press conference, and I asked myself, I wonder what Jen thought of that. So I'll ask you, what does Jen think of that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I agree with you. Her not answering some of those questions right off the bat and being very specific made me think they have so much information related to an intersection between these two at some point before the murder. Maybe that was that proximal event I always talk about that happened that ignited this action that he took.
Talk to me about NIBIN, because I've always been under the impression that NIBIN, again, this sort of ballistics dating site, right, for lack of a better description, really got weapons that are out there from bad people doing bad things that already got arrested, and those weapons went into the register. This guy, Dr. Michael McKee, is clean as a whistle. He doesn't have a scratch on his record.
You know, when you think of using NIBIN, that's typically in gang investigations and violent crime investigations where you don't have any clue who somebody committed it, but you have these casings that could connect to another crime. That's what we think of using NIBIN for. But the fact that there is an intersection here tells me that perhaps he bought this weapon at a pawn shop. Perhaps he bought it from a friend of a friend who somehow was connected to some time where that weapon was used, and NIBIN considered it important.
For folks who watch the show on a regular basis, I think they're going to know the answer to this question, but for folks who are kind of getting in.
So what are they saying right now? Are they saying that they have a weapon, but it hit on something else? He might have bought it from a friend or someone else. And interesting. I mean, the dude had money. Why not buy brand new stuff? You know? But then again, he might not have had money. You know, he had 7, I think, or I don't know how many malpractice lawsuits against him. So maybe he just wasn't making any money and, you know, turn to doing something else for money. Maybe.
Into the true crime space, a lot of people would wonder, why are the police so tight-lipped? They say they caught their guy. He's arrested. He's not getting out on bail. What's the big deal?
This is a big deal. Right now, they are looking at interviewing witnesses, anybody who saw or knew anything or understood that there were any issues. The minute you start releasing details about the investigation, you no longer know whether the individual you're interviewing is providing details that they really knew, or was it something they heard on the news. So it's very important that they stay tight-lipped at this stage.
And also that ever-present preservation of a prosecution. You know, if they, look, Koberger, they didn't get to prosecute him. It was just a deal. But if this goes to trial, you need to really hold your cards close to your vest. You got to share the discovery with the defendant, but you don't got to share it with Ashley, you know. So I am super curious about the confirmation today that the police said it was Dr. McKee, in their words, that skulking figure in the back alley. What is your estimation from your law enforcement background on how they determined that that was him?
Well, first of all, always, he has had this extremely unique gait. When I say always, I mean in all this film we've seen of him, from the beginning of time, he had that left foot that curved in, kind of pigeon-toed, has a very long gait, and you could tell he was a big man, not a small man. In addition, look at his clothing. It is unique to him, and I believe it was likely the clothing and maybe even that shoe tread that you touched on a few segments ago that led them to know this is him.
So at the end, I'm just going to tell the viewers, watch the very end, what he does with his face. And he looks away, takes his hand up, kind of covers his face, pulls the hoodie down. I mean, that's a big telltale too. Look, in cold weather, I do that too. I grew up in Winnipeg. But if you are leaving a murder scene and you know there are cameras, this is kind of the behavior you might actually emit.
Exactly, Ashley. From the beginning, when this person of interest, you know, was identified by law enforcement, to me, this person was so important. He was right near the crime scene at the time of the crime. And the way he acted like he was trying to hide and was guilty of something. So definitely a person of interest, a suspect.
So my guess, Jennifer, is there's a team of detectives still working this case and fanning out to try to figure out more material.
Man, that's kind of weird. He was probably telling people all kinds of stuff. He was probably telling people lies about her or the husband or other, probably.
That will help prosecutors. They don't have to prove motive, but juries really want it. Who are they going to be interviewing to try to determine if there was, well, we know there was, but the extent of the acrimony between Monique Tepe and her ex-husband, Dr. Michael McKee? How will they find all that?
Well, they are going to start with everyone, Ashley. They have to go clear back years from when they were first married, identify mutual individuals, try to figure out if there was any sort of pattern of domestic abuse that then led to this. Obviously, they've been divorced now 9 years, but did he express to anybody the anger and resentment that he must have harbored if indeed he committed this crime? And what did she say? Has she told anybody about her concerns about Mr. McKee? Was that something that, she left on the table for them? All of this is going to be explored by law enforcement.
Every time I see that wedding picture, I'm just so sad because she just seemed so happy in this new life. And then there are those two children who don't have those two parents anymore. Jennifer Koffendorfer, always appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our news.
All right, there you go, folks. We will be back with more information on this case as it unfolds. It'd be interesting to see the phone data, his Google search and all that they can't reveal right now. How many weapons were actually in the property? And were they linked to anything else? So, it's a new case. So there's a lot to probably investigate, and you have to look to see if he's done this before to somebody that he didn't like, or maybe somebody that was suing him or something he's attacked. I don't know. We'll have to check into it. I'll be back with more info on this case as it unfolds. And we're all trying to solve the, cases. And heck, we're probably trying to solve our own murders. What a horrible thing. All right, I will be back. As you can see, it is sunny out, but it is cold. So dress warm, and I'll be back.